In this video, I'm going to go over solving equations involving rational exponents. Rational numbers are numbers that can be expressed as a fraction. So we're going to have exponents that are fractions. All that means, really. But we're also putting those exponents to the power of x in an equation and asking to solve for x in an equation. So how do we do that? Well, if you'll remember, if you have something to the power of something and then you raise that to the power of something, you are multiplying the exponents together. Does that ring any bells? If you were multiplying two things together with two different exponents, you would be adding the exponents together. So in this case, you're multiplying them and you get, it's not 8 to the 4th, 8 to the 8th power, or where did I get the 8 from? One of those days, huh? X to the 8th, but in this case, you would get x to the 6th. See the difference? Raising a power to another power and multiplying something to a power times something else with a power. Okay, so how do we isolate the variable in this case? How do we get x all by itself? Well, you get rid of that exponent, right? How do you get rid of that exponent? You raise it to another exponent, because when you do that, you'll be multiplying the exponents together. And when you do that, you want the exponent to be 1, right? You want it to be a nice exponent, x to the raised to the 1 power, because that is what we're solving for. So what do you multiply 5/4 by to get 1? You multiply it by 4/5, the reciprocal, right? So when you have an exponent that is a fraction, you raise it to the power of its reciprocal, and voila, it's just to the power of 1 after that. But always remember, what you do onto one side of an equation, thou doest to the other. It's the commandment of math. So if you're raising that side to 4/5, you got to raise this side to the 4/5 power. So that becomes x to the 1, and this becomes 32 to the 4/5. What the freak is that? 32, the 5th root of 32 raised to the 4th, right? 5th root of 32 is 2. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Times 2 is 32. So yeah, 2 is the 5th root of 32. And now we got to raise that to 4th power, right? Don't forget that part of it. So x equals 2 to the 4th power. 2 multiplied by itself 4 times is 16. Yeah, because 2 times 2 is 4, and then 2 times 2 is also 4. So we get 4 times 4, which is 16. All right. Now, let's skip this one in the middle and go over to this one first. You might think this one is harder, but this one is actually harder. This one, we're taking like the whole side of this equation and raising it to the 3/2 power, right? So we can do what we just did over here and raise it to the reciprocal power, which is 2/3 in this case, and raise that to 2/3. And voila, there it goes. It's gone. Thank you. Good night. But 8 to the 2/3. We got cube root of 8 squared. Cube root of 8 is 2. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So we get 2 squared over here And when we did that, we were just taking the cube root of both sides. I just had to note this, kind of a side note. When we did the cube root of both sides, we didn't take an even number, so we didn't have to do the plus or minus thing. In this case, it's just whatever the value of it is. So that's good to know. Anyway, 2 squared is 4. So I have x plus 5 over here, and from here on in, it's pretty simple, right? 4 minus 5, negative 1. All right, that's not bad. All right, now the middle one. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, to get x by itself, we could divide both sides by x to the 3/4, but that would give us only one answer. There are 2 answers in this equation. So what we do in this case is we get everything over to one side and we set it equal to 0. This is kind of like a quadratic equation sort of thing. So we're going to subtract both sides by x to the 1/2. All right. 3x to the 3/4 minus x to the 1/2 equals 0. Okay. Now we're going to factor out x to the 1/2. How can I do that? Well, we're going to divide them both by the same amount of x, right? So that means we're going to subtract the exponents, which means we need a common denominator. So write that 1/2 as 2/4. And you see what I mean? We're going to factor out x to the 2/4. And then we're left with 3x to the 1/4, right? Because we divided out 2/4 of that. So we're left with 1/4 there. Minus 1. There's still a 1 there. Equals 0. Okay. And now, well, now we change that to x to the 1/2. 3x to the 1/4 minus 1. 0. Now we treat it like a quadratic equation, right? We set this equal to 0, and we set this part equal to 0. Each factor, because we just factored it, equal to 0 to see what our 2 answers are. So x to the 1/2 equal to 0, and 3x to the 1/4 minus 1 equals 0. All right, plus 1, 3x to the 1/4 equals 1, divided by 3. X to the 1/4 equals 1 over 3. Take the reciprocal power, and we get x equals 1 over 3 to the 4th power, 81. 1 over 81 is one of our answers. X to the 1/2 equals 0. Take the reciprocal power. That was easy. Plug those back in. I think you'll find they both work. X equals 0. Well, 0 raised to the power of anything is 0. 3 times 0 is still 0. X to the power of, or 0 to the power of anything is 0. So 0 does equal 0. So that's true. And 1 over 81, 4th root of 81 is 3, right? 3 cubed is 27. So 1 over 27 multiplied by 3. So that's 1 over 9. And the square root of 1 over 81 is 1 over 9. So that checks out as well.